Five, four, three, two, one. And good day to everybody. And post Memorial Day check in. But of course, as we discussed yesterday, every day is Memorial Day because if they can man the eternal flame in tribute to our fallen veterans, then we can treat that particular ceremony and our men and women in uniform with reverence and make an effort to show that kind of gratitude on a daily basis, and not once a year when people want to pack a cooler and go to the beach. But it matters. Yeah. So today is Beijing Quadruple Tap. What my focus will be in today's word traction podcast is the virtual stranglehold that China and Xi Jinping is trying to exert on on perhaps a willing participant in this competition, in one Donald J. Trump. That all remains to be seen, but it's interesting when you look at the bigger picture, as we try to do here sometimes. Automobiles, really EVs now, chips, AI, and rare earth minerals. Pretty standard stuff in our each and every one in our news feeds at various parts of the week. But there's really a well organized uh, effort to make a full court press by the Chinese Communist Party, because their goal is to be us. They want to be the leader, and they're patient. We've talked about this at perhaps ad nauseum to some of the dear listeners. But the futurists' approach, making plans that are, you're in China. A short-term plan is for a decade, but they do 10, 25, 50, 100-year plans because they're playing the long game. It sounds trite, but when you think about how frequently our governments turn over here and in other parts of the world, other democracies, versus the autocracies, then they can afford to play the long game. Right? State funded enterprises, research and development. We do that ourselves. And under the Trump administration, there's a lot more of the state funded enterprises, because in a communist iron fist posture, demanding shares, equity in publicly held companies, which is deeply disturbing, but it's where we are. And until we root out the corruption, it will continue to be the case. But briefly, automobiles, which we talked EVs, which we talked about very recently. BYD is the front runner, and that's the one that's favored by the CCP. So they're going to always be the front runner, unless the titular owner of the company displeases Xi Jinping, and then bad things happen. But BYD is build your dream, and these cars are going to be operating in Canada this year. Right? And we talked about this on a separate episode, that Donald Trump made some noises about, well, maybe I'll let Xi bring in, build a factory here and employ our workers. So, who says no to that? Well, a whole bunch of people, including the unions, um, UAW and others. But it's my supposition, it's my perspective that Trump will, for corrupt purposes, in a heartbeat, if the number's right, he'll sell out the American automobile slash EV industry. And as we know, the EV industry has been handicapped here. So he has done everything. His green energy policy is no, because he promised that particular stance to the fossil fuel industry. And we talked about yesterday and the day before that if you are oil fat cats, you're the big guys, you're the Exxon Mobils of the world. Then in the U.S., 40%, what is it? 40% or more of the petroleum is gasoline to power cars, right? And 60% overall is quote unquote transportation, but that's jet fuel and that's different refining capacities and things that we don't need to concern ourselves with today. But it's safe to say that I would argue strenuously that once the American public, if they get a look at these cars without brutal tariff treatments attendant to that, that the U.S. EV industry will never get off the ground because China can outpace the rate at which they can produce these vehicles is staggering, and they're not stepping back. So I think that between Trump's corrupt intentions and the proximity, that Americans are going to start seeing these more on their roads because of our dear friends in Canada, who Donald Trump is rather mean to, but they're still our brothers and sisters. And these cars are going to start visiting our country. People are going to like 29,000. What? You know, in your range, and the range that they're getting on these batteries is pretty fantastic, and that's only improving by the day. So, and then AI and chips, connected, but everything is connected. Everything in our world now is connected to chips and AI. But DeepSeek, you could think of it as a lost leader in China's attempt to capture the AI market from the big boys and girls here. That they're offering now what is, pennies on the dollar cost wise compared to our indigenous options. There are all sorts of security risks involved in that, handing the Chinese Communist Party lots of personal data and access into our networks on a scale that hasn't been seen before. That's very troubling from a national security perspective. But as people understand the need to have this technology, and they can do it at 1/10 of the price reliably, and many aspects of it is open source. That it's an attractive option that some will try, some will work with. Trump will jump up and down and say, well, we can't do that because then they'll be eating our lunch. But since Trump's lunch will have already been bought and paid for before that strenuous objection comes to the forefront, I would argue that we're probably going to see a more relaxed posture towards that particular platform. Chips. This is in the recent trip to China, everybody was sort of tittering and joking about the founder and CEO of NVIDIA having to meet the presidential flotilla in Anchorage to hitch a ride to China. Now, is was Jensen unable to afford travel to China? No, it was just that he was, for some reason, whether a nefarious reason or other, left off the list originally. After the fact, he said, "Well, I had a conflict, so there are others that can more conspiratorial because he is a Taiwan. He is born and bred in Taiwan. That that would perhaps raise issues that Trump wanted to push underneath his skirt or the skirt of the table until a later date because it would make him uncomfortable. And Trump is, as much as he blusters, he's a non-confrontational guy. He is a punch in nose once, turns around and runs kind of guy. He's not the keep coming back for more kind of guy. He's Donnie from Queens. So the neat trick about the chips, like, well, wouldn't the Chinese government want the chips from NVIDIA that Trump gave them the permission to purchase? It's a neat strategy that also follows with the EVs. That what Xi wants more than anything else is a well-developed and strong indigenous capability to produce chips. And he may be a little bit behind. Could using the NVIDIA chips allow him to cheat forward? And I use that colloquially. He not not that the Chinese are above taking a little bit of IP, but I mean to accelerate his own program versus forcing his own indigenous chip industry at gunpoint to figure it out themselves. I'm talking about Yahweh, and that's a promising approach that has proven see above, right? BYD, and not taking too many shortcuts. And now BYD has pushed Elon Musk, the everybody's least favorite genius, to kick him to the curb as far as the Chinese market, unless Elon agrees to transfer more IP to the Chinese, and then it's just a circular game. Who's zooming who, and then the fourth and perhaps the most important weapon, cudgel, sword that China has control of course, is the rare earth minerals. And it isn't just access to the raw minerals and materials. It's the processing of those same resources into a usable form for any one of 9,000 different purposes. That is, they are a necessary component to almost everything in tech, in AI, in chips, in every aspect of our lives. Right? In uh, uh, don't discount the importance of batteries. You've heard of those before. They're important, particularly with the EVs. So what G has with that is at anytime, if he turns off the processing, refining, making those rare earth minerals into a usable form for the market, for the many markets, There are a number of them. Uh, I'm not. I've always been intrigued by that. What is it? That Colorado School of Mines that has turned out so many brilliant men and women. That would be that mineralogy or whatever the heck you would study there. That it's must have been a really cool place to study. Colorado is a cool place in general. So what he could do if Trump or any other leader, you know, he doesn't have anything. Xi has nothing to worry about from Putin. They don't have the capacity to be a leader in chips, AI. They've got some rare earth minerals, but they don't have the technology or the capacity to refine them, right? And they're not making cars. It's the last cars they made in the Soviet bloc were not much of a competition to anything in the West. Lada and yeah, two stroke engines, and yeah, you had go karts as a kid that were more powerful than those particular vehicles. So he's not worried. Putin is just kind of along for the ride with Xi. You know, Putin has particular strengths when it comes to intelligence and some in manufacturing armaments. But we found that many of the ones that he sold to Iran or other places don't work very well. But he has some extraordinarily important weapons, like having the United States president as a wholly owned asset of Russian state security. So that's something. But that's he's not unlike in other areas of tech and um, uh, and development of AI and such. Putin is really on the sidelines. Modi, India, more, better. India's problem right now, today, as micron technology increased by, I just tweeted about this, 16% today, and they just hit a $1 trillion market cap. Amazing. You'll not be surprised to learn that that was one of the stocks that was on Donald Trump's day trader list, where he made a bunch of money on that. So, and that could be that today we might learn that he pocketed another 10 million just on Micron alone. So, but we won't perhaps learn that until well after the end of the second quarter, huh? Because that's what the reporting currently is, and there as Trump does, there are so many other things going on. The pace and the fire hose of information, he can keep us all, if not confused, fully engaged with just focusing on the top 3 or 5 issues. And he's has his teams doing a lot of other things. And in his declining health, as Trump is currently at Walter Reed, um, the military's medical hospital. They're in Walter Reed, Maryland. Yeah. That for his third annual checkup of the year. Not a math major, but there's something a little bit rotten in Denmark on that one. But the bottom line, the rare earth minerals. At any time, G wakes up one morning and says, "Donald Trump is being a fucking prick. I'm going to show him." He can turn a switch. Of course, there are impacts, second order effects to the Chinese economy when you punish the United States for misbehaving, according to Xi. Xi just wants to be left alone. He wants the U.S. completely uninvolved in Taiwan. If, for instance, he began to move more, there are plenty of assets near the Taiwan Strait. Hmm? Plenty. and Chinese assets. You saw that the U.S. military was doing exercises in some of the Japanese islands and in the Philippines. But the storms are starting to brew in that part of the Pacific, so it's getting dangerous to do things like that. And as I offered in my Saturday Stratagem podcast, is that's one of the tools that Trump can use to disrupt the November elections. Is to the troops are going to return to that part of the world and continue with exercises in October. And can he, with a wink and a nod and a underhanded handshake, make an agreement with Xi? Like, you want to keep me in power, right? I mean, I'm your boy. We're best buddies, and of course, Xi and Putin, OBV, want to keep Trump in power because he's the easiest punch in the prison yard, right? They can have their way with the United States in general because Trump is at the helm, and they don't want they don't want Pastor Pete to be replaced. They want him right where he is because that improves their odds. Yeah. So just from the top again, and the EVs, the chips, AI, and rare earth minerals are all top top five on Xi's list too. He's doing a delightful job with all of them. He could, absent trade barriers, flood the market with so many of the uh, BYDs that he could crush European and U.S. markets rapidly. They're, as I talked about, they're in Canada, but Canada, the only cars that are manufactured in Canada are American uh, uh, companies. Only, Ford and GM are manufactured up there. So they're in Korea, they do a delightful job with Kia and some other sirens. Okay. Um, yeah, they are Korean. The Koreans are wonderfully talented in automotive, but China's it's a big dog to fight with, and they have been aligning themselves for this moment for decades, patiently for decades. What did they know about AI? They didn't know a great deal more about AI being this prominent and indispensable to every aspect of our lives. They didn't know that earlier than we did, you know, uh, by any large measure. But what they're able to do with an authoritarian regime is they can decide to direct all available resources at a particular challenge. And by resources, they have 600,000 assets in state security alone, right? Spies that can work on capturing capturing IP, but also at the same time they can monitor the progress of their competitors, and they can gauge. It's uh, better get Meineke. They can judge also where to direct their efforts, because if they say this industry, EVs, is the most important to the CCP, and the U.S. is starting to outpace us, then we can redirect resources towards that. That is not the case. In fact, the U.S. has abandoned the playing field in EVs for the time being, for the remainder of this Trump administration. And so China will continue to progress on that front, but they can easily redirect another 25 to 30% of their intellectual resources to chips and AI, because the EV will take care of itself, and their main competitor has surrendered, wholly surrendered in full. So it makes, when you abandon the playing field, your opponent can score for fun, and that's what's happening over there. So, in any case, that was our first day back from Memorial Day in the United States weekend, and Trump, again, we have to be good humans, even as we are angered at the ridiculous racist behavior coming from the administration and from the Republican Party, both the Senate and the House. We can we can repeat our frustrations, and more importantly, figure out ways through collective action to countermand their efforts on those fronts. But at the same time, DJT is just another human being he may even have, I hope you're sitting down, he might even have grandchildren who love him. Right? Think about that just for a few minutes, as repulsive as that kind of sounds. But it's easy to dehumanize an enemy or an opponent sometimes, and then you are weaker for having done so. So we will wish whatever is ailing DJT. We hope he has as speedy a recovery as an 80-year-old man can have, that he is not in pain, and that certainly his faculties are not any more limited, because that's bad for us. There was another story over the weekend that talked about, is JD Vance reassessing a decision that he hasn't made yet to run in the general in 28? Because little Marco is getting more love from daddy, or have one or both of them, the leading contenders, learned that, as I will argue until I'm proven wrong, that DJT really wants DJT Jr. Um, to be the next candidate for the Republican nomination for president of the United States, which is my contention, because he is, when you're a selfish MF and you are racked with grievance, then the only person, if you can't serve, then your namesake, your flesh and blood. He has two natural born sons, and he also has Barron, who is Melania's son by a different father. No, and then he has the beautiful and talented Ivanka, who has some of the same. If you remember, Donald Trump's first wife, Ivana, if you're old enough, she's been gone for a while now, and they split up some. Hard to imagine. They split up some time ago, and there was the Marla Maples interlude, and then Melania. But back in, I'm going to just push the camera back a little bit because the sun is coming over my shoulder. That Ivana was a classy character, and she was the grande dame of the Plaza Hotel in New York, and they were. She was always fighting, as we've talked about before. One of the sources of Trump's greatest grievance is that the old money, high society New York folks, the truly wealthy, always look down their nose at Trump a little bit. And that's a lot like what happened to when Barack Obama lit him up in the correspondence dinner. Is that grievance just kind of, it's like a cartoon character, and you watch their face as it turns from white to red, and then the steam starts coming out of the ears. And that was the way that he felt. He felt disrespected because he had arrived. He was Donald J. Trump, and he should be treated as their equal, when the equivalents of the Rothschilds and the true old money Carnegies and the like, the New York real estate version of that old money, always kind of put their noses up and say, he didn't go to Browning. I mean, yeah, he did go to what, the New York Military Academy. He did graduate from UPenn Wharton Junior program or whatever. But he never got the respect that those highfalutin New York real estate folks thought that they deserved. And so he was seething at that, and then double seething at Barack Obama, and here we are. Not blaming Barack Obama. Barack Obama gave us one of the greatest gifts any citizens of any country could ever have. Hope, hopium, or the non hallucinogenic form of hope, the good old fashioned biblical version of that. That's Barack and Michelle Obama and their beautiful children gave that to America at a time coming out of GW and Iraq and in parts of Afghanistan. We needed hope, and he delivered. He stood up and he said, I got this." Right? And that was part of the beauty and the magic of Barack Obama. That is something that Trump can never deliver. He doesn't have the riz at all, not even close. So I'm going to slowly stand up, pick up the camera, because it is, if you can't tell, and I'm going to give you the pan, and maybe we'll try to find some birdies flying around behind me. The bee that was, excuse me, the drone that was disguised as a bee yesterday, that was trying to assault me out here on this very porch, seems to have either built a home or gone elsewhere. So there's a little bit of a breeze, so he would have a harder time hovering over our conclave here. And so I'm sure we'll catch him on another day. But I'm going to carefully pick up the camera, lift it up, because I can't see. Well, I can't see for shit. And when there is light on a camera, then it's double. Can't see shit. And we're going to go back a little bit further, get closer to the shade, and then try to lift the camera elegantly without dropping it on my foot. Do a little pirouette. Yeah. Give you a pan shot of some greenery, and then step 1 foot inside the door where I get a little shade, and then press the thank you and goodbye button. So that's that. I'm going to do it carefully. So thank you for everything. Thank you for joining Word Traction. And please, excuse me. Thank you all, each and every one of you. So you put me over the 1,000 subscriber number, which is delightful. What the not all subscribers are created equally. The pace at which I don't care about any of that. I'm grateful. Right? So, but of course, because I'm an American male, not a Trumpy American male, but I'm an American male. I want more. Not like that. But no, thank you for that. In any way you can share this on a different platform, whether that's the old FU book or whatever that is, would be greatly appreciated, because I want to continue to grow this network and other things coming like other human beings communicating with other human beings, which is fun. But as I've selfishly with my overall life schedule, it's easier for me to do these video essays, and that is those will be remain part of the process, but I will eventually add people in conversation, perhaps not out in a delightful uh, view like this, because if I can't see the freaking camera, how do I know that the beautiful man or woman that is joining me, whether I can even see them on the camera? That's a trick, but I'm going to figure it out. So yeah, so do something to take a shot at the Super Bowl pick of Nashville, Tennessee. If you can take a swipe at them each and every day, just a little one in your social media travels, and yeah, much love and restack, retweet, subscribe, and all, and we'll catch you sometime tomorrow, which maybe it's going to be early or late, and then we're back on Thursday with corrupt connections. Where am I going to find the material for that? So, yeah. So thank you, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn the camera, raise the camera. Thank you.